What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of my NCAA 14 Syracuse Dynasty reboot as we enter into my favorite part of the year, recruiting. First and foremost, while the Orange are still winless, let's just give rightful credit to Leonard Robinson for his recruiting efforts last year, which brought in quarterback Melvin Patterson and reliable workhorse running back Terry Clark. The improvements of the team as a whole have been very evident, especially in last episode's game versus former Syracuse quarterback Grant Olson in North Texas. If you haven't watched that game, make sure you go do that right now because I am about to spoil it. Basically, Melvin Patterson and Terry Clark kept a weak Syracuse team in that game to the end, but ultimately they are still winless because obviously the defense is still a major liability and has forced 0 turnovers on the year. I don't know if I could tell you who Syracuse's punt returner is at this point because the defense really cannot get stops. Regardless, Patterson has ultimately provided a spark of offense that should have every Orange fan anxious for next year, and it all starts with this year's recruiting class. Unlike last year, Syracuse has 15 scholarships as opposed to 10, and that should allow them to recruit players to start over the current liabilities on defense and on offensive line. Syracuse should also be looking to add weapons around Melvin Patterson because while Jason Jordan and Will Golden have both been respectable options, they should be looking for a few more vertical threats and reliable pass catchers to pave the way. I have been studying Syracuse's recruiting board and believe that Syracuse would be very content if they ended up with many of the guys they are targeting. Like last year, however, there's a lot to cover and I don't really think I should be doing it alone, so I yet again called on my unofficial godfather for help. I don't think he needs much of an introduction this time around because he should be fresh on your minds as the man who introduced us to Melvin Patterson last season. Without further ado, take it away, FG.
Thank you, Legion. Last season was a blast, and I definitely enjoyed introducing you to players like Melvin Patterson, Justin Fernando, and Terry Clark, who have been key cornerstones in the improvement of a team that averaged just 2.8 points per game last season. Wow. However, there are still some glaring weaknesses, and I must say that the defense has been absolutely awful as a unit through these first couple of games. And how about the drops in the receiving core? One more drop touchdown or big play, and I might just rip my hair out. Anyways, I am pleased to say that Syracuse appears to be very conscious of these concerns and have filled their board with 2-star players that should be able to help fix them moving forward. I will again be introducing you to 4 prospects that I believe Syracuse should prioritize in the recruiting process. Let's jump right into it. Legion mentioned the desire to add a vertical threat for Melvin Patterson, so why not go for 2? The first guy that Syracuse is targeting is wide receiver Bobby Nixon. The thing about Nixon is that he played with Melvin Patterson last season in Placentia, California, and was a big part of the reason for Patterson's success, accounting for 1,200 yards through the air. His chemistry with Patterson's a big reason why he's favoring Syracuse right now. Nixon is an elite deep threat with great speed, but watch out when he gets the ball in his hands because he has the elusiveness to make defenders miss. Nixon is also a very polished route runner for his size and is a guy that I think will slide in nicely on the outside, allowing Will Golden to play in the slot, which is his more natural position anyways. Bobby Nixon should commit to Syracuse soon and would be a great addition to the passing game, but hey, if you thought Syracuse was going to stop there adding a deep threat, you clearly do not know Leonard Robinson because he found a diamond in the rough in JUCO standout Corey Barnes from Saginaw North, Michigan. This guy is a bit undersized, but a total game changer, and I honestly do not understand how he was so overlooked. Barnes is the ultimate mismatch. Line him up as a blocker, he can block decently, but ultimately you want this guy stretching the seam. Line him up on the outside, mismatch. Line him up in the slot, mismatch. Put a linebacker on him, mismatch. Barnes is more of a really big receiver who can also block, and it's super not fair. And don't even get me started on what he can do after the catch. You can't bring this guy down with an arm tackle. Corey Barnes, the premier offensive weapon for Syracuse next year. There you have it. 2 very exhilarating prospects for the Orange. But let's make our way to the defensive side of the ball where Syracuse have finally faced the fact that their defensive backs are simply not fast enough. Let's start at safety, where I will premiere the highlight freshman of the year. Last year it was starting middle linebacker Marcus Pitts. This year it is 6'2" rangy safety named Marquise Leonard. Leonard is already an Orange commit from Westchester, Florida. And defensive coordinator Sanchez Sanders should be relieved that he can finally be comfortable to play single high safety without worries. But Leonard isn't a one-trick pony. Oh no. This guy at 6'2" can absolutely lay the wood. He is a big hitter and definitely a huge upgrade over the current sluggish safeties the Orange have starting in Nick Williams and Robert Peterson. Big upgrade here, instant starter, tremendous upside. Now, moving on to the final prospect I will be previewing. Everyone knows that one side of the field is essentially locked down with former Florida JUCO prospect Justin Fernando starting. But the Orange really have to go all in next season, and they will not win games with suspect corner Craig Glover at the other spot. So I made my way down to Birmingham, Alabama, and found Drew Reese, a JUCO prospect who was tremendously overlooked and committed with Leonard right after the North Texas game. Seriously, how do these guys keep flying under the radar? Reese is an elite cover corner, especially in man coverage. However, the best part of his game is his ultimate combination of length and athleticism. Like Fernando, he will not be elite in run support by any means, and is not a sure tackler, but honestly, as long as these guys are locking down receivers and creating coverage sacks, there is not a complaint in the world to be given. This concludes my prospect spotlight, and as you can see, this is a big class for Syracuse that will determine if they make or break the Melvin Patterson era. I am very excited for what is to come. I can't wait to watch this team develop and watch what the future holds. That being said, let's turn it back to Legion. Thanks for having me on. See you next year. FG, out.
All right, FG, thanks for once again introducing us to some exciting pieces to the puzzle moving forward. Of course, we have more players on the board to show you guys, many of which are just as exciting as who FG just showed us, as we look to replace starters who are still inconsistent walk-on players with at least developmental freshmen. Everyone knows that if Melvin Patterson goes down, we are throwing Tim Wheeler into the fire, and we remember how well that turned out. Let me remind you all, 1 touchdown, 14 interceptions, 30% completion. It doesn't take a math major to understand that those numbers absolutely suck. So, offensive coordinator Hank Ball made his way down to the South Carolina prep scene and found Sean Day, a 6'3", 215-pound signal caller who fits the mold of a Casey Wilcox, who actually backed up Leonard Robinson back in the day. He has a large frame and a solid arm with enough mobility to at least escape light pressure. Definitely not a game changer, but at this point in the series with 15 scholarships, we have to be thinking about building depth. Next up, we have more of a height-weight speed project wide receiver in JUCO sophomore John Johnson. This is a guy who should be able to serve as a respectable number 4 option next year and already has a foundation with his hands and route running and towers at 6'4". I don't think that he will be a quality starter until his senior year with players like Will Golden, Jason Jordan, and Bobby Nixon already ahead of him, not to mention Corey Barnes, but this is an intriguing prospect for the Orange. One thing that has been very apparent for the Orange is that Michael Lane really needs to go. In limited action, he's a total liability in every major defensive category and needs to be replaced. So Syracuse is exploring new territory in Oklahoma, where they found high school linebacker David Mack. This is a very intriguing option who offers decent athleticism but will instantly become the most efficient tackler on the team, while also having the potential to develop his cover skills. Mack is favoring the Orange and should be a day 1 starter. Robert Washington has not had great production as a JUCO sophomore defensive end, especially in run support, so the Orange prioritized JUCO junior Chad Smith, who combines a solid frame with enough speed and strength to be a plus run defender and maybe get 5 to 6 sacks per year in the process if things go right. He's a sure tackler that should offer much needed help to the Syracuse defensive line. Field goals were a major problem for the Orange last season with Chris McCoy, so they will bring in a punter with a strong leg, convert him to kicker in an attempt to replace him. That's all there really is to say. Now we move to the committed prospects, and there are a lot of them this year because we did the special later in the year this season. First, we have some cornerback depth, and while he is not the most athletic guy, anything is better than Craig Glover. He is more athletic and better in coverage. I also heard that Terry Clark could play some nickel next year. More on that next season, though. Next, we still have to get 2 more starters on the offensive line and have to worry about Jeremy Dodd leaving in 2 years, so we brought in 3 this season. Tyler Ward is a freshman tackle who is a very balanced player and should slide to right tackle next year. And he's a gem. John Moore is a JUCO junior who only stands at 6 foot but is extremely strong and has proven to be an elite run blocker. He will definitely start at center next season. Next is Matt Butler, who is honestly just a slightly worse option than Ward and should provide depth at all 5 line spots next season. We also recruited a freshman defensive end by name of Philip Nichols to provide depth and stop the run in the base defense, and allow edge defender Robert Washington to play more of a 4-3 outside linebacker role on early downs. He is already committed and should be a full-time starter in just a couple years. The final player I've not covered yet is freshman defensive tackle Brian Johnson, who is a very similar player to Brett Young and should step into his role in 2 seasons when he graduates, but also play well next to him next year. I know he isn't very strong and we lack strength at the position, but trust me, nose tackle will definitely be a priority in next year's class. Overall, this is a very good class to complement the core that Syracuse built in last year's recruiting class. Perhaps we could even see Syracuse have a successful season next year with a complete offense surrounding Patterson. Anyways, I am excited for the rest of the season, and am hoping that Syracuse can lock up the remaining players that they are targeting. Obviously, if we do not get some of these guys, Syracuse has many options on the board that could also be great additions to the squad. That being said, next episode, rather than showing the UTEP game, I've decided to jump into the offseason because the team did not really show much that we have not already seen from them, and we ultimately lost the game and were completely dominated by UTEP up front. We are making our very best effort to throw first-year recruits into the fire next season and take advantage of the senior years of Melvin Patterson, Terry Clark, and Justin Fernando, which hopefully leads to winning some football games. That being said, next season's special is going to be significant because we have to find a way to replace all 3 of these players without regression. This has been an exciting, tedious task so far, and I'm excited that you are all standing by me through it. I cannot wait for what is to come. Legion Army, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the recruiting special, and I will see all of you in the off-season episode that will be up on the 4th of July. Enjoy yourselves. To my US viewers, don't lose any fingers, and to everyone, have a great day. I am Legion. I am signing out.